Have you ever wondered what copyright is and why it's important? Having studied the assigned materials, I've gained a better understanding of free speech in the First Amendment and how it plays a role in the US copyright law. There are a few fundamental aspects of free speech that we should know. The First Amendment protects some forms of expression but not others, protection from government interference, and the right to free expression. So let's get started. Copyright is a form of, what is copyright? Copyright is a form of intellectual property protecting original works of authorship. It is used to preserve music, literature, and many more things. Copyright is important because it allows the copyright owner, who's usually the author, to control how their work is being used or is used. Examples of copyright include a situation between Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun, which caused a lot of issues with some of her albums. And I'm going to explain all of this right now. The story behind this is that Scooter Braun, who is a manager for many other artists besides Taylor Swift, he bought a music company called Big Machine Records, which then led Braun to obtaining the records of the first 6 albums that Taylor released. And in this case, song lyrics are usually copyrighted, but because that's the case, and one cannot use someone else's lyrics and pass it on as their own. And they must have permission, as well as to give credit and sometimes even pay a royalty fee. And we need to know about copyright to develop a good and strong understanding of what it defines, how it works, what it protects, and why it protects the things that it protects. Intellectual property is also crucial when it comes to copyright. Under this category, things like books, art, novels, poetry, and movies are created by someone. And also there are trademarks. Trademarks meaning logos, designs, slogans, symbols, jingles, and other things along those lines. Then there are patents, which are a bit different from copyright. What makes it different is that it protects things like scientific inventions or any invention of any kind, novels and writing, and other industrial means. And on a different note, the main goal of the US copyright law is to encourage the production of someone's creative works for the benefit of the general public. So this is aimed towards the public domain, pretty much. Another example of copyright would be if someone owned a skincare company and had their own website that talks all about the company with the same description and without permission from the owner, and that would be considered a form of copyright. And fair use obviously also plays its own role in this matter, or in this scenario. And I believe that copyright is only fair and just if someone is granted the proper permission to be able to use another person's original works. I also believe, in my personal opinion, that if an individual did do something like that without permission, without any granted permission, it would put that owner or author in a very intense or shaky situation. The rules against copyright should never be misinterpreted and should be followed as they should be, regardless of any situation or anything that happens. And when someone does not use copyright as they're supposed to, they tend not to think of the consequences that lie ahead or what they could potentially be. And this can also cause them to get into a lot of trouble if it is not applied if it is not applied to something correctly. We also cannot forget about copyright infringement, which ties in with the idea of copyright. The meanings of copyright infringement and copyright are similar to one another, and both have the same concept. If someone uses another person's copyrighted material without consent or the proper consent, it can lead to things like civil lawsuits, which could also be one of the potential consequences of this action. Another potential consequence could be facing jail time. And this all proves that copyright, along with infringement, is a very strict matter and should be approached carefully. Copyright protects there are many things that copyright protects. According to one of the articles, poetry, books, films, songs, computer softwares, and architecture are all examples of different works of authorship that are protected by copyright. This part of the article also states that copyright does not protect facts, ideas, systems, or methods of operation, although it may protect the way that these things are expressed. And one of the main things that copyright plays a significant role in are commercials. There are many different types of commercials that are protected by copyright, and I will explain these. These commercials include advertisements in magazines, newspapers, and video clips, or any type of video. So, how long does copyright protection last, or typically last? According to copyright.gov, the website, this kind of protection is in effect for 70 years, so that's how long the span is, or can be, or simply for as long as the author lives, so pretty much their entire life, and for anything created after the 1st of January in the year 1978. In addition, it also says that copyright protection for works that were made for hire, or along with works from unknown people, and false works lasts for 120 years from when it was created, 95 years from when it was first published. Next, let's dive deep into the idea of fair use. What is fair use? Well, it's a rule that allows anyone to incorporate parts of copyrighted content without permission or consent from the owner or author. For example, someone could use a specific item on stage as a prop during a performance, like maybe a book or anything else of that nature, and have it not be a problem as long as it follows fair use. I believe fair use does not give people unfettered access to use other people's copyrighted work. And I believe this because if we think about it, this pretty much only allows copyrighted material to have limits under certain conditions. And also, not to mention that fair use has its own purpose. And this has to balance the protection of a creator's rights with enabling the restricted use of content that is copyrighted or any material. So, have you ever wondered what copyright is and why it is important? Having studied the assigned materials, I've gained a better understanding of free speech and the First Amendment and how they affect U.S. copyright law. And all in all, copyright should always be viewed as a very significant part of communication law.